Base is dropped on a new round of soccer down here. It is a Tuesday, ergo, in our Descartesian nature here. Ergo, therefore, otherwise, it is Tuesday Thoughts. So it's whatever's on your mind on a Tuesday. We've got some things to get into. Bart Keeler is going to attempt to discuss at the bottom of the hour what we brought him in to discuss yesterday before we turned it into the OSG on CFB and anything else that didn't have a thing to do with the Women's World Cup and the groups that have been fulfilled, and finding out whether or not Bart and Jason Nix have figured out their travel plans to go hang out with BAM for the World Cup down in Australia and New Zealand. We kind of talked about it a little bit on the weekend. We had a bit of a special show once the groups came out themselves, but we'll try it again with Bart at 9:30. And then we will continue to go with whatever's on your mind as well for the 10 o'clock and beyond. And there's stuff to talk about and stuff that I will bring to the table and just kind of sit there and present without comment, considering there were some things that were said that came across on Reuters. And we'll get into that in hour number 2. So Jarrett there, Jon here. So good morning, Jarrett.
Good morning. We're going to try and keep this on the straight and narrow.
No. When was
We're
that ever?
Try. We're not going to succeed. We're going to try.
I was going to say, when did that ever happen, sir?
No, never. Anyway.
Opening kickoff, brought to us by our friends at Kickoff Coffee, kickoffcoffeeco.com. And there's your QR code for those of you who are watching on Twitch who want to respond quickly and hit that QR code so you can get all the information that you need and have it take you straight to our friends at Kickoff Coffee, kickoffcoffeeco.com. And once again, you can follow Kickoff Coffee CO on Twitter, on Facebook, and on Instagram. Very cool stuff that they're doing. Use the code SoccerDownHere15. And thanks to everyone who has used said code so far to get 15% off of your purchase. And they, in turn, take 10%, roll it over into the youth game, youth initiatives. Very, very cool stuff from our friends at kickoffcoffeeco.com. So, coaching carousel is kind of what I wanted to get into early this morning before Bart joins us at the bottom of the hour. And we've had some coaches who have taken gigs, some coaches who have been linked to gigs, and some coaches that you're kind of sitting there going, okay, is he linked to a gig? Does this count? What's going on here? And I guess we can start domestically, and we'll talk to Dylan Butler about it. Yesterday, we'll talk to Dylan about it yesterday. That's a good start, Jon. We'll talk to Dylan about it tomorrow, considering that Dylan brought this information to the table, and it looks like that Houston might be trying to figure out who their new coach is, and there have been conversations about the possibility, and this is just, in the interview stage and things like that. The Dynamo, Ben Olsen has been discussed. So apparently Ben Olsen and Hugo Perez have interviewed for the Houston Dynamo coaching job. In-person interview with Ben Olsen, and that Tommy Scoops brought that information to the fore yesterday. So Ben Olsen, Sam Stejskal, Pablo Maurer et al., Ben Olsen interviewed for the Houston gig. What do you think, Jarrett?
I think none of this matters if Houston is only going to give their coach 1 year.
True.
Until I see them give someone more than 1 year, unless that 1 year just happens to be a magical flash in the pan of brilliance, which is never a guarantee in this sport, until that happens, I'm skeptical, because you can't be going coach to coach, year to year, constantly and expect it to work. Like that's not the way this works, man. It's
no.
And I understand, like, if you feel like, hey, that wasn't the right fit, something's wrong. Yeah, there are times to do it, but when you do it every year, just about it, I mean, you can't develop any continuity. You can bring in whoever you want in this instance if you're Houston, but unless you're actually going to give them time to work and more than one season, because look, Houston, that one season might be rough. Y'all got stuff y'all got to fix. That's just part of it. And they started spending money last year. They spent money in the summer. It didn't work after the All-Star break. They didn't get any better. They've been a really rough second half of the year. But you got to give it time to know if something's going to work or not. You can't just, well, that didn't. Oh, that 6 months didn't work. Like, so hopefully whoever they get, they at least stick with them for a couple of years and see what happens.
In theory, yes.
Yeah, I mean, because and it could absolutely not work. Whoever it is could not work. But blowing them out 1 year. I don't know how you expect to see if anything can work.
Paulo Nagamura was hired in January, didn't last an entire year, went 8-16-5 before he was fired. Dynamo 2 coach Kenny Bundy finished the season, and he was at 2-2-1. Now, here's the history lesson for those that don't know. Dynamo GM Pat Onstad, hired by Houston back in November, began his coaching career in 2011 as an assistant under Olsen at DC United. Briefly came out of retirement to play 3 games in net for DC that spring as they went through an injury crisis, and this is from our friends at The Athletic. Quickly returned to the bench, continued to work under Olsen until he left in DC of January 2013. Multiple sources have told The Athletic Olsen initially approached for the job in Houston prior to Nagamura's hiring last season. At the time, he was serving as president of the NWSL's Washington Spirit. He left that in April, and during his tenure, the Spirit won the 2021 NWSL Championship. Remember, Ben Olsen spent better part of a decade as head coach of DC United, 2010, leaving in 2020. Coach of the Year, 2014, Open Cup Championship, 2013, postseason 6 times. But when DC was bad, they were really bad. And he was fired in 2020 after a 2-9-5 start, replaced by Aaron Losada. And so you have that notion there. And looking at what folks are jumping in this morning, Taka, Hugo Perez, sure. Ben Olsen, stop it. This isn't the NFL where the carousel has only so many options.
Ben Olsen's such a weird cat for this. Because it made sense in DC because he had lifer status in DC. If I'm not mistaken, pretty well regarded, like genuinely good dude.
Yeah.
Was there through a lot of bad times, some good times. It's tough out there for anybody really to do the job. It's gonna feel, if it's Ben Olsen, all that being said, it's gonna feel like an uninspired hire.
Yeah.
It's going to feel like, okay, we went and took DC's throwaway scraps from a guy who kind of overstayed his welcome at DC.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, we talk about this. Hey, look at that. We're back in college football. We talk about this in college football of you want to win the press conference.
Yes, you absolutely do.
But winning the press conference means precisely, Dick, if it doesn't work on the field, but you also don't want to shatter it and have morale at an all-time low after the press conference. I don't hate the idea of Olsen on principle.
Yeah.
But if I can get Hugo Perez, I'm getting him. That's what I'm doing if it's me.
But you've got to but you've got to pry him away from the El Salvador national team.
You try. You absolutely try, and you see what happens. You make that phone call, and you see what he says, because this is very much in the category of you don't know until they give you the answer what the answer is going to be.
Correct.
You don't want to end up on this weird carousel and. I mean, I don't know. I'm very interested why Olsen's coming up. Aside from that, he's, by all accounts, a really good guy. He does know the league.
And he has the relationship with the GM, yeah.
He does, but he has an encyclopedic knowledge of this league by now. He has to have functioned as long as he has in this league. But again, it feels so uninspired if that's your decision.
Yeah.
There have to be more splashy hires, and I think I saw Juan Carlos Osorio was mentioned in
he was
as an interview as well, or someone they wanted to interview.
Yeah,
there's better options.
Yeah, you have, and this is the point that's made by Byrne. Hugo Perez will be a huge step above Ben Olsen. It's not even the same category. Their real issue is the sporting side of the business, not the coaching. And when you have a new owner like Ted Siegel, who brings in Ache Ache and brings in Ferreira, you bring in Hector Herrera and Ferreira to be a part, and Sebastian Ferreira as DPs. Ted Siegel's making the investment. And you have this retooling of a roster, and Ted Siegel, understandably, I'm not saying good or bad, I'm just saying that understandably, as a new owner who invests a lot of money into a product, you these days want that instant return. And that's not necessarily the way to go about things, is wanting that instant return. You have to be patient. And we're seeing these days with a lot of hires with these new owners that invest 9 figures to the left of the decimal place in their newest toy, that they want results now, no matter how unrealistic an expectation that is. And we've seen that, I think. I mean, by all indications, we knew Paulo Nagamura from his time at Sporting Kansas City too, from the time that we've covered the USL Championship. We thought it was a great hire because of his knowledge of the league through New England and through Kansas City, and that he wasn't given the time with this retooling. So you let him go before a full year, you bring in Kenny Bundy, and now you're back to square one, trying to have a new owner and a newish GM start the process all over again with a new coach, with these DPs you brought in. And it just sounds like it's a vicious cycle that, if you're a Houston fan, you want to avoid. And we probably should get Glenn Davis to talk about this and what he thinks about this whole cycle.
Yeah, I'd be interested in Glenn's opinion on it because he's around it constantly.
Yeah.
I said it's just you're in a mode now where you are consistently just on a carousel of a coach every year. So at what point do you lock down and say, okay, we can't be changing coaches every single season. Now we have to lock in on one guy.
Yeah.
And we're going to have to just grin and bear it. How long is that guy going to be there? I don't know. Is Perez going to be there for very long? I bet 2 or 3 years, something else. I mean, you might get a call to run another national team, might get a call to run a bigger club. Always a possibility. You would love to have the stability of a Peter Vermes and the success of a Peter Vermes, or a Brian Smetzer, but you don't find that just around the corner at the store.
Yeah,
like that doesn't just pop up, and it's tough to find that.
Yeah, at HEB, you can't just wander down to the HEB and sit there and end up with a new manager. Head coaches in recent years. After Dom Kinnear left in 2014, no manager has lasted more than 100 MLS games in Houston. Owen Coyle, which was an absolute disaster. Wilmer Cabrera, Tab Ramos, Nagamura. None of the full-time managers lasted 100 matches. They haven't made the playoffs since 2017, when they won Open Cup. And that season was the only year they made the playoffs since 2013. They won the two MLS Cups in 06 and 07, were finalists in 11 and 12, and have done virtually nothing since.
I still wonder, for what happened with Nagamura, y'all could have just kept Tab for another year and seen what happened. And maybe it doesn't get better. Maybe it gets worse. Maybe it gets a little bit better. At that point, why not just keep Tab for another year and maintain a little bit of continuity and at least see? I mean, same with Nagamura. I wonder if they're because you got rid of him, less than 9 months.
Yeah,
that he was in the job. So was something wrong? Of course not. I can't compare it directly because we don't know the story, but were there issues where it just wasn't working on multiple levels? Was the Gabriel Heinze situation? By the way, Heinze,
yes,
Heinze getting hits for coaching again in Argentina, y'all. You'll be able to watch your boy on Paramount Plus, possibly, assuming he gets the job. But were there issues beyond just the record where they said, okay, we gotta pull the chute right now, the way Atlanta did with Heinze, because you didn't want to do that. I didn't want to see Atlanta do that, because I didn't want them to get on this carousel where oh, we got to change coaches again. No, I don't want to see him do that.
Yeah.
I don't want to get in that situation. And yeah, so now you're in a situation where hopefully you are able to keep your manager around with Pineda
Mm-hmm.
to see how it will continue to develop, because it can be daunting out in that carousel to establish anything.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if there was something else with Nakamura there, man, but it's oh.
Mm-hmm. Rack is
Hey,
in this. Yeah.
you want to get in the FDB conversation?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
uh, look, the worst thing that happened to this club was 2020 in existence.
We got
Is
10 minutes.
hmm?
We got 10 minutes, so go for it.
High pitch whine. Check your microphone.
Okay. Nope, it's fine. It sounded fine to me.
Yeah, you sound tinny to me. It might be me.
Okay.
I'm gonna drop and rejoin. Give me a minute.
Okay. All right. So Jarrett's going to drop and rejoin, and so Jarrett's going to come back in. But yeah, Rack, yeah, Houston. And the thing is, when we've had Glenn Davis on the show in the past, and it has been a when we have Glenn, you can sense the disappointment in Glenn's voice, the frustration in Glenn's voice, and you want, for that market and for a guy like Glenn, who is such a fantastic ambassador of the game, you want it to succeed for that market because of what it can be. And when you have an ambassador like Glenn, who is as perpetually frustrated as he
It
is,
might be your microphone. When I left, it's still there. They said.
well then, all right. Well then, tell you what, I'm gonna do. Why would it be mine? That's
I don't know. You sound different. Like you sound like it sounds like it sounded like your microphone like dropped out, like you lost a connection.
weird, because nothing has
I don't know.
changed in this thing ever since I've plugged it in.
Anyway.
Okay, so no, I'm still discussing the Houston situation and Glenn Davis as an ambassador. So keep talking for a minute.
Yeah, I mean, so the Houston's going to be weird because it's we've talked about this. It feels like Houston should be that hotbed for this game in this country. Like it feels like if you just do things right, you would have a lot of good luck building up. Hey, it's gone. Was you, John? It feels like you would have a lot of good luck building things up. But you got to have continuity. Now you have ownership. Now you're willing to spend money, and it's great you're spending money. Now it has to like actually pay off though, and that's going to be a key thing for Houston. As far as Atlanta goes, and Emilio brought it up. Hey, Frank DeBoer was. People were ready to run Frank out of town now, and now it feels like maybe things weren't so bad then. Yeah, the man was pragmatic as hell, but he's a big change from what you had in Tata. But it's as a public service. Yeah, John, it's you.
I know it's me. Thank you.
But it's such a weird. It was such a weird thing with it's such a weird thing with the Frank DeBoer saga when you look back on it now, because everybody was just kind of anxious and apoplectic about the fact that you weren't lighting people up on the scoreboard like 5-0. And it got, I mean, they seemed like they worked through their midseason doldrums. They went to the end of the season tearing people apart, got into the playoffs, and are one of the most lopsided statistical games you have ever seen in your life away from hosting another MLS Cup. Then Joseph does his knee to start of 2020. You just lost Brandon Vasquez in the expansion draft, which, it's hard to like. I still think that one's hard to blame just because Joseph's coming off 2019, where he had set the record for goals in consecutive matches, it's hard to sit there and, well, they shouldn't have let Vasquez go. Like, man, we didn't know that he was going to be. Joseph was not gonna be able to go, and that more importantly that what 3 full seasons later or 2 full seasons later, Brandon Vasquez was going to turn into that guy. Like he hadn't even turned into that guy yet in 2020. He didn't just hit the ground running. It took time for him to develop out there. But then, even then, it felt like, because you finish off that game in Nashville, you get the win. You come home, you get the win. Everything is just working. Emerson Hyndman playing well, scored in the first 2 games. Ezequiel Barco scored in the first 2 games. And then COVID happens. You go to the bubble. Nothing works. Yeah, man, we don't have to rehash the whole bubble. That was just 3 pathetic games. And yeah, the last one felt like he completely lost. Like they didn't fight. It's what it felt like. And it made sense at the time to pull that trigger. But man, what a weird ass time, because if you don't have COVID, do they find a way to balance in the flow of things, survive without Joseph? Is Frank DeBoer still managing? Does it work? If a bit more pragmatic, because some of the changes he'd made going into like 2019, where you're not pressing as high, you're getting back on defense more. It made sense when you had Michael Parker starting the year, who wasn't as quick as he had been in the past, and Leandro Gonzalez Perez was finally starting to get credit for being an insanely good defender. But ironically, that came when his defending was starting to drop a bit. Like his stats were starting to drop a bit. It's funny because like when he's there, and then when he's in Miami, he gets the plaudits. He gets the plaudits that he had deserved since 2017, really. And he finally gets them. And it's never not funny to me that it took him 2+ years to get the credit he deserved from day one in Atlanta. But you have a defense where you had to sit back a bit, because that's what you had to play with. But I mean, you didn't want to make that change, I don't think. And then on top of that, then you get Gabriel Heinze in here, who we were all excited about, and then it just, man, square peg, triangular hole.
Mm-hmm.
Like, not even round hole. The hole was triangular. The peg might as well have been dodecahedron. It did not work. Don't know if it would have ever worked. But one of those things that you swung big and it did not work. But we were all excited about it when it happened. You go get a guy who's an MLS lifer, and now you're going to try and stick it out and see what a healthy year looks like. And I'm excited. I have excitement for next year, because God, hopefully people are healthy. And
Healthy's a good thing.
Healthy's a good thing, not just that, but hopefully chemistry. I do want to see what this offseason looks like, because I imagine there are guys who are under contract who might get, might be sold, guys who might be out of contract. We don't know yet about all that, because we don't know. We haven't seen the end of the year roster moves announced. So we don't know where everybody sits on their contracts. I'd imagine it's good. Some parts of it are going to look different next year. And I'm excited about it, because if you can't get excited about it, then, I can't be that I cannot personally be that pessimistic about it. I'm excited to see if they're able to get things going the other direction, but I'm glad they have some continuity, which is kind of the whole fulcrum and thesis of this conversation, of have some continuity on the leadership side with at least your head coach, even though you're changing out your president now. And God only knows what it's all going to look like by the time it's said and done, man. Like, I don't even know. I don't even know what the presidency is going to look like. Who's going to have it? I don't know, like an update of like where they sit with everything. So I guess we just kind of sit on our hands and wait. Yeah.
Yeah, and now it's time, since Bart is his incredibly normally prompt self, to run an open if I can find it quickly, and then we wait 3 seconds after it runs. So here's Bart. All right, so day 2 of Bart Keeler, and apparently day 1 of my microphone being completely.
I was wondering what happened there.
I don't know. I legitimately don't know. Nothing has changed in the history of this microphone setup and the history of my audio board, and apparently all hell broke loose this morning. Maybe they just didn't like me discussing Ben Olsen in Houston or something.
I can understand that. I would run away from Ben Olsen possibly. So.
And Hugo Perez was part of the discussion. So, yeah. So welcome back, Bart.
Hi there.
We're going to try and discuss the women's game this time.
Let's how about we start with that?
Yeah.
Okay. So, have you figured out your travel plans yet for the Southern Hemisphere?
Not entirely. Okay. But I definitely will say I'm considering not necessarily being in attendance for that first game against Vietnam, so that I can travel a little bit easier. But we'll see. Definitely plan to be there for the game against Netherlands and the final group game, and go from there. It's a lot of time off to have to take, unfortunately.
Yeah, I was about to say.
You know, it's.
Are you budgeting your vacation to make sure that everything is in one piece so you can go?
I don't have a whole lot of vacation time period, and I don't get rollover vacation. So that's a little unfortunate. But it'll work. Worst case scenario, I mean, I work from home. I'm a remote worker, so I'll just bring my laptop and be like, hey, I'm working. So that's the backup plan at this point.
And so, like roster wise, what are your expectations versus your hopes? Like where do they diverge down the path?
So the hopes are that a lot of the players who are injured currently will be healthy and performing well by the time that, you know, July 22nd rolls around next year. So that includes Sam Ewis, includes like Lynn Williams, includes Julie Ertz, Kristen Press, Katerina Macario. These are significant injuries that, especially in at least two of those, alter the way that the team can play. More would be like an Abby Dahlkemper. Tierna Davidson has been out with a major knee injury as well. If we can get a handful of those players back, and literally a handful, because there seems to be like a bushel of players on the U.S. women's national team who are dealing with long-term injuries. If we can get a handful of those players back, it definitely improves the way that this team can play. I think if you're looking at possibly getting Davidson back, especially, that would solidify your back line and reduce the need for Becky Sauerbrunn, who is unfortunately just at the end of her career and not able to keep up with the international game at the speed that it plays at. But those are my hopes. Where that diverts is the reality that players don't often come back from significant knee injuries within a year of and be at the top of their game. Now, Katerina Macario has been working very hard, I see from her Instagram, trying to get back into the form that she was in, which was stellar form. I mean, it was Champions League winning form. She's also a lot younger than a woman like Julie Ertz, who not only had to go through, just the general life of giving birth and being pregnant, but that was coming off of also being very injured for a very long time. Again, you see with Kristen Press, that was a significant knee injury. That's an ACL as well. That who knows how she comes back. We don't know how these things will play out because, we just, unfortunately, that's how injuries work. It's not like we haven't seen that with Atlanta United here, that you just don't know how someone's going to be or how long it'll take for them to recover from an injury. Spoiler alert, that's what we're concerned about with Miles Robinson and Brad Guzan next year. The fortunate thing is most of these injuries occurred more than a year out from the World Cup. So I'm very hopeful that we will get a good chunk of those injured players back. But I'm not confident Julie Ertz returns to playing international level soccer ever again. I think she is going to be perfectly content with her life where it is now, as someone who has accomplished so much in the women's game. And I mean, she's still a 2-time world champion. She can retire and be just fine with that. But I do think like Sam Ewis, Katarina Macario are important for the attack and the midfield. Tiana Davidson and Abby Dahlkemper would be great upgrades on the back line to just give some experience and support to Cook and Gurma. And then you're looking at hopefully the return of Katarina Macario to be leading the line, or at least a backup to Alex Morgan, and giving you more versatility in the way you play.
So where does let's assume you're right with Julie Ertz. Where does she end up in the pantheon of U.S. women's soccer players? Like where on that pedestal, the multi-tiered pedestal, does she end up?
I don't think she's on the Wambach, Ham, Akers level, but I think she'd be in that, and for different reasons, that Foudy, Box, just longtime stalwarts who made that team better because they were so good at doing their job well. That even might be underselling Julie Ertz a little bit, but she was. I'm not joking when I say I think she might be one of the best defensive midfielders to ever play the game of soccer. Her ability, her being brought up as a center back helps her with her defensive reading of the game from a defensive midfielder position. But her athleticism, her speed, her quickness to close down we're seeing it right now. And this is the biggest issue I do have with Vlatko is Andy Sullivan is not Julie Ertz because no one is Julie Ertz. And he's expecting Andy Sullivan to perform like Julie Ertz would have performed in a kind of single pivot, lone defensive midfielder role. And no one can do that. You just can't, because Julie Ertz was the best combination of speed, athleticism, intelligence, and then when she got the ball, skill to turn the ball upfield and launch attacks. Add to that her prowess on attacking set pieces. That little ponytail flick that she could do was unbeatable and unguardable because she just could get to that spot quicker than a lot of people. She's in that tier 2 for me. If she does end up calling it quits, it'll be like, I think that Shannon Box, Julie Foudy mold of like really good player, not going to ever be seen as the greatest of her generation because she didn't score the way that, some of those players did. But she was vital to the way that 15 to 19, she was a big reason why we won World Cups in those years.
Oh yeah, I think she extended that window through 19. Like, cause
absolutely.
I was very vocal in. I did not think they had a blue chance in hell at winning the cup in 19. I thought that just the European clubs were better. And, her performance in 19 helped drag, and it's not just her, but her performance in 19 helped drag them through that.
Sorry, I have to respond to a work message.
No worries. So when you have finished responding, there's a question to the floor for you.
And I think that's again what we're seeing now is Julie Ertz allowed you to have a Megan Rapinoe on the field who wasn't necessarily concerned with defense all that much. It allowed you to have Horan and Lavelle not worry about defensive responsibilities as much, and focus just on getting into great attacking spaces. I mean, obviously, I think Horan and Lavelle are decent defenders. I'm not saying that, but it just allowed your attacking 5 to have more freedom up front. And I don't think we've adjusted well to that. That's probably my biggest criticism of Vlatko right now is from a defensive standpoint, we have not adjusted to not having Julie Ertz right now. And to your point, Jarrett, those European clubs, you saw the last World Cup. We won, but you still had England, Netherlands, France.
Wasn't necessarily convincing.
Yeah. You still had France doing well. Germany was in a down year, and now look where they are now. I want people to understand that it's God, this sounds. If we don't win the 2023 World Cup, the sky is not falling. That would have been, that would have be 3 World Cup titles in a row, and would have been 4 World Cup finals in a row. And just when you think about the longevity of our success, 91 we win, 95 we're third, 99 we win, 2003 we're third, 2007 we still finished third, our worst World Cup performance ever that we can remember, still finished third. 2011 we finished second, 2015 and 19 we win it.
You're describing an entire generation, by the way. Like I don't mean like you're talking about legitimately an entire generation of 4 World Cups of 16 years. That's a playing career.
Yes, that's
an entire generation of success.
Yes, and that's where we're seeing right now. Legitimately, the issue is that generation, the Alex Morgan and older generation, who have been part of the 2011, 2011, 15, and 19 cycles. They're on the wrong side of 30. They're getting banged up. They're not able to perform quite at the same level that we would like for them to, while also seeing the fruits of a lot of the investment in the women's game from the European side. I mean, the reason England is so good right now is because they've been pumping money into the women's game in England for a good decade, right? If not more, when it comes to just development. You have to applaud clubs like Arsenal, clubs like Chelsea, who have really wanted to develop women's teams. And even there's others at like lower levels. Like, I mean, you still look at like a Reading, who, though they're never going to be at the same level as Arsenal or Chelsea, they've been having women's professional teams for a very long time. And that's great. Like, I do not see that as a negative, because ultimately that's going to be better for women's football internationally. Would I like to see more investment or a different type of investment from the U.S. Soccer Federation into women's soccer here? Yeah, I think that we do need to reevaluate how we develop our players here. But this is just like, these are the existential issues that are facing us, and that doesn't necessarily mean it's a negative. It's just not everything is as cut and dry as, well, we have Alex Morgan, she's going to score goals, or we have Megan Rapinoe, she has fun hair and she's good. There's a lot more that goes into winning a soccer game than just, oh, well, we believe we can win. Because to be quite honest, that's kind of what brought us through the 2019 World Cup as well. It was just an undying belief that we're going to win. We can rag on the coach all we want. That's fine. But at the end of the day, players win games, and maybe we don't have the best collection of players right now, but that doesn't mean that we're not still the best women's program in the world because of one down cycle. One. And I'll remind you that 2003 and 2007 were down years, and look what we got after that.
Yeah, that arrogance in 2019 was life-changingly hilarious, I'm not going to lie. So Bert asked about, how worried are you about the tactical deficiencies compared to the top European teams? I know we kind of touched on that, but if you wanted to give you an opportunity to expand on it if you wanted to.
I will still go down to the fact that I think players win games. I think that the tactical deficiencies right now do come from the fact that we were so used to doing something in a certain way and it's not working. I think that Vlatko needs to adjust the way he's setting up his team. But I'll also say that you can't scream for us to play good teams to test ourselves. Scream that we haven't tested ourselves, so we don't really know how good we are. And then when we test ourselves and go, oh crap, maybe we're not that good, use this as well, see, we're just shit. And it's like, no, like this was the point of playing England and Spain. This is the point of playing Germany. Now, as I have said multiple times, if things don't improve next month against Germany, then yes, we can start really having those conversations about Vlatko. But at the end of the day, I don't you can look at the 2021 Olympics and blame Vlatko for a lot of things. I think his roster selection was poor. I also, think that the way that the team played was poor. But is that on the coach or is that on the players? Because for so long I've been told that the players have this incredible mentality and they're so good at getting together and winning. And that 2021 team was pretty much consistent with what we saw in 2019, and they couldn't get it done. So, I do think that we need to have a shift toward a better tactical knowledge of the game. But Vlatko can't change that alone, But he does have some adjustments to make. I think we're too reliant on crosses and too reliant on a lone defensive midfielder. And those are two changes that you can easily make. But I also look at, Sophia Smith and Mal Pugh, who tend to be ISO players. They'd be really good in the modern NBA. Is that we're going to be good at international women's soccer? I don't know.
A couple of other points from David. Let me throw a couple at you. Sullivan and Horan together are his issue, and Burns says he would play Ashley Sanchez over Rose Lavelle.
I don't know if I would play Ashley Sanchez over Rose. I would play Ashley Sanchez over Lindsey Horan.
So if you had the 11 in a perfect world, everybody's healthy, what is your starting 11?
Everyone's healthy? Ooh, that's tough.
That's why I posed the question, sir.
Yeesh. Okay, backline should be a little bit easier. I'm going to put Alexander in goal. You have Huerta on the right. Cook and Davidson in the middle. And right now, Emily Fox has been the only good left back that I've seen, and that includes Crystal Dunn. We'll put Crystal Dunn on the left side. We'll put Emily Fox on the left side. Midfield will be Sullivan, Sanchez, Lavelle. But I think this is where I don't know, because I think if Sam Mewis is healthy, that changes things a lot. I could see Sullivan, Mewis, Lavelle as a much better midfield and a much more balanced midfield. So I just don't know. When you say healthy, that means they can run. Does that mean they're at the level they were at? That's you know what? No, we'll put Sullivan, Mewis, Lavelle. I think that's our best midfield if everyone's at healthy and at their best. Front three, I still think Alex Morgan is your starting striker. I love Katarina Macario, but I think she's a little bit behind Morgan in the way we want to play. If she's healthy, Kristen Press on the left, Mal Pugh on the right. I think that would be a very fluid and dynamic front three that could work well with the midfield that I laid out.
All right, Rack is in this morning. Man, has Horan fallen that far?
No, she won a damn Champions League last May. It's about how does she fit in this midfield.
Yeah, that was his follow up. Is it a matter of form or fit?
It's a matter of fit, and it's a little bit a matter of form. I think that she hasn't been as good as she has been for us, but I think it has more to do with the way that she fits in the system. Again, she tends to be a little positionally rogue,
loose.
Yeah. So having Julie Ertz behind her makes that easy, but yeah, no, Lindsey Horan is still a very good soccer player.
I'm just having these images in my head of like the old U.S. men's national team where it was Michael Bradley and Jermaine Jones. And Jermaine Jones would just go on a walkabout for 70 minutes, just chasing the game like a dog chasing a car.
Yeah.
And Michael Bradley's just sitting there like, well, guess this is a single pivot now.
And that's one of the reasons why we weren't as successful as we could have been, because Michael Bradley does not belong in a single pivot midfield.
No, but Jermaine Jones had to get his steps in.
Yeah, he had to get that fitness watch. You needed to get it in.
Yeah. God bless him.
That's exactly the point. It works. She works well at Lyon because she has Henri right next to her, who is very similar to the way Ertz plays. So yeah, exactly. Like she works well at Lyon because and that's a club situation where you said, hey, Lindsey Horan is a very good soccer player. Let's find, granted, they've had Henri, but let's make sure she's paired with someone who works well with her. We don't have that luxury at the U.S. women's national team level because we don't have a Julie Ertz or Amanadine Henry. Those do not grow on trees.
Yeah,
couple of points.
that's always my favorite conversation. We're like, just replace the legendary player who's. It's like Miguel Almiron here. Like, just get another Miguel Almiron. Okay, you find one for me.
Yeah.
Find me a unicorn.
Yeah,
Exactly.
unicorns are weird. They're tough to replace, y'all. That's why they don't just make Iniestas on trees.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, they don't make strikers on trees. Ask Greg Berhalter right now.
Jesus.
A couple of notes on the U17s before we get into the other groups and group
Yeah.
depth. Burn. On a positive note, saw the U17s women's team played a lot more with the ball than just hit it over the top like earlier editions. Great progress and will help in the long run.
Yeah, despite what apparently women's soccer Twitter thought that losing to Nigeria in a penalty kick shootout was like this sign that the world is ending and we're terrible at soccer, we played really good. Like, we played really good soccer throughout that tournament. The Nigeria game was one where they got a very lucky penalty kick. I'm not saying it wasn't a penalty kick. That's not my point. They got very lucky that a very innocuous foul called literally on the first blade of grass that was painted with white, which means it's inside the penalty area, was called via VAR on a dubious angle. Nigeria only converted penalty kicks the entire day, and they were better at goal line clearances than we were. And I'll be damned if people running with this narrative that somehow that means that bad things for us. One, we've never won a U17 World Cup. Like, that, youth World Cups do not. Being at a youth World Cup is good. Making it out of the group stage is good, but like actually winning it is a crapshoot. I'm sorry. But that U17 team played very well. Our center backs, actually, I forget their names off the top of my head, but our center back pairing throughout the tournament looked very strong. They were good on the ball, positionally sound, and very good at recovering balls throughout the tournament. And look, youth World Cups are weird. I thought that they were they played very good soccer. And I to me, that was a positive. Also, Alyssa Thompson wasn't there, who got her call up in October for the women's national team. She's 17. We look at the U20 World Cup. We didn't have Trini Rodman either. So it's not like we're sending our best players there. I mean, the youth World Cups are always who are the best players that we can get to come to this tournament.
This will be my final one. Is I have to rejoin the real world in a minute. But I wanted to get your opinion on teams to watch outside of the U.S. when this World Cup hits, and we can talk about this again when we get close to it, because things change. But aside from the U.S., if someone came to you and was like, "Hey, I'm going to watch this Women's World Cup. If I'm going to clear my schedule to watch another team other than the U.S., who would it be?"
So the first one I would say is England, because obviously they're the reigning European champions. They are, and this is where the conversation of the U.S.'s prolonged success versus the current success of England. England has been a pretty decent women's national team for 3-4 cycles now. Kelly Smith is maybe my all-time favorite women's soccer player, and they're very good right now. Very good. I would try. I personally am going to be trying to go watch them in person when I'm there. So that would be the one that I would say is definitely go try to watch England. I think the next thing I would say is look at groups, maybe not necessarily teams, because there's a lot of good teams right now. Like, you can still look at France, Germany, Netherlands, they're still good. But Group B for me is going to be a lot of fun. Australia, Canada are very similar teams who are both trying to figure out how they fit into the modern women's soccer world. And we've got Nigeria and Ireland, who kind of similarly, Nigeria has been always around, never that good. That would be an interesting one. So Group B would be very interesting. And then the other one I would say is Group G with Sweden, Argentina, and Italy. Italy has been kind of hit or miss in the women's game. Argentina is trying to become the next best team in South America. And then you've got Sweden, who's just always been around, I think is the best way I can say it. Sweden has, I mean, they've finally get, they've got bronze medals, they've got silver medals. Can this be the year that they get win a World Cup. That would be an interesting storyline for me. And then if you want one other team that you're like, yeah, I got to watch, it would be Germany, because I think they're back to being good again. And Germany was incredibly good from 2003 to 2011. For those, I mean, this is pulling out maybe a little bit of an old reference, but if you remember the 2002 WUSA Founders Cup final, Birgit Prinz bagged 2 goals to win for the Carolina Courage, and they've been good ever since. So I think they're kind of back to that level of with Alexander Pop being very, very good. No, not Spain, Burn. Sorry. I don't trust teams that have never won a knockout game of any tournament. I just don't. Sorry. Maybe that's the thing to watch. Can Spain actually win a knockout round game? Costa Rica's going to beat them.
Oh wow! There's your early.
I think that's going to happen, but I'm rooting for that to happen.
Team Chaos, we're a fan. So Jarrett, you're back with us tomorrow?
Yeah, theoretically.
All right. So we like theories. So we will see you tomorrow, my friend.
Sounds good.
Thank you for carrying the first hour.
Hi, Jarrett.
Because of whatever's going
on
with my friggin' microphone. Craziness. All right. So you realize, of course, you're going to have to take your audio equipment with you.
Yeah.
On this trip.
I'll have to figure out something. Yeah.
So that way you can actually report and be on the show in the morning, and we can have these updates.
That 14-hour time difference.
No, that's math. So it's
15 actually, because I did the math yesterday, and I did it with 14, and then I realized that because we have daylight savings time, it's actually 15 during that time. So we are 15 hours, or 13.
So is it 15 or 13?
13.
Okay.
So 13.
That's not
there we
bad.
go. 13 hours difference.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Rich Ransom has a vote in for France as a team to keep an eye on.
We've been watching them for years. They ain't done nothing.
All right. So 13. So if you're on the show right at 9 o'clock, that's 10 o'clock at night. That's not too bad.
Maybe. That sounds right.
Yeah. So 13 hours. Okay. That's not.
All I know is we play the kickoff time listed on the FIFA website. For our first game is 1 p.m. local, 1300.
Okay.
And we will actually be watching it at 9 p.m. here in Atlanta. So I don't know how that works. I don't do math. I don't do time zones. I don't know, John.
Man,
I don't know.
I don't either.
Because you're going backwards, right? You're going backwards.
Yeah.
So it's not, so you're going, So 12 hours.
Right.
15, I don't know.
Yeah. You mentioned a lot of really good groups. What is the group of death in your mind?
Group B. Group B is the group of death. Australia and Canada, probably you would say are favorites to get out of that group. I think that's a very fair statement, but Nigeria is still a very good team. We saw them in September play pretty well against the U.S. Randy Waldrum is trying to get that program up to where it should be, which is the class of Africa. And I think he's on the right track for that. And then Ireland is just kind of this like sneaky, who knows what they are. I don't expect much of them, but I think Group B is really the group of death. The other one could be Group A with New Zealand, Norway, and Switzerland. Norway has been weirdly just not good the past couple of tournaments they've played in, which is a weird thing for the team that was so good in the early editions of this tournament. I mean, let's see, 2005 they won it. I want to say they're the runners up in 91. I don't remember that far back. I think that's right. Yeah, 95 they won it. 2003 they were in this. I think we beat them in the semifinal or the third place game, or Germany beat them in the final. One of the two. They've been very good, and they have one of the best players in the world in Ada Hegerberg, and they just haven't been able to find. I mean, granted, she hasn't played consistently for them, but Norway hasn't been able to find that top end performances as of late. But Group A is also very just interesting because when you have New Zealand as your host country, who hasn't really performed well at a World Cup, that leaves room for teams like Norway and Switzerland to get through.
What first timer or what? Give me an underdog. Give me an underdog.
First timer or underdog?
Both. Haha.
Okay. So my underdog I'm not joking when I say this. My underdog is Costa Rica.
Okay.
They're in Group C with Spain, Zambia, and Japan. Zambia, good story there. I think they're a first timer. That would be fun to watch. But Costa Rica, on their day, I could see them beating Japan. I think they're better than Zambia. I don't think they're better than Spain. But that's an interesting team to watch. Costa Rica has established themselves as the third best team in CONCACAF. I think I would like to see how they can perform in this group, because I think this group matches up well for them. There's not Zambia maybe is a little bit of the more athletically gifted group, but Japan and Spain match up well with Costa Rica in terms of playing style and the way they want the game to go.
Okay, that's your underdog. What about your first timer?
I think South Africa is the first timer, if I'm correct. And I think South Africa is just fun. They won the Africa Women's Cup of Nations. That's an interesting one to look at, right? See if they can somehow capture that tournament magic again next summer. Okay. There's really not a whole lot of first timer. Vietnam is in our group. That's a first timer. That's cool. But not a lot of the other ones are really going to be that impactful, I don't think. It's just they're first timers.
All right, one last question from Byrne before my last question for you. Do you think more young American women players will go to Europe, and will that exposure to different playing styles improve the WNT? He says yes and yes. He thinks Rodman, Smith, Girma, etc. will end up playing for top clubs in Europe.
So I would like for our players to go to Europe. I think that overall there is better soccer played in the European leagues right now. I still think the women's NWSL, the NWSL is still probably, in my opinion, the best league in the world, because top to bottom there are more better teams, right? Maybe the Women's Super League in England is better. I think there are some better top end clubs, but we've seen that the NWSL clubs perform well against these European teams. I would like to see them go to France or England. I don't want them to go to teams like Barcelona or Juventus or teams like that in those leagues that are not very competitive.
And Barca would have to actually pay their people and have the money to do it, but that's just me.
Yeah, well, I think that France or England would be great landing spots. I think Rodman would do well in the Women's Super League. I think there are teams that would fit her style, which is a very direct attacking style, right? She loves to get on the ball and go at players. I think that would be good, but it would also teach her, like, hey, I have to do this and I have to do this, and be a little bit more nuanced with the way she finishes out her attacking phases. I'm interested to see what the fallout from the Yates report is when it comes to NWSL players. We were kind of looking for this when a couple years ago, when US Soccer stopped subsidizing NWSL, and did not really make a requirement that players on the US Women's National Team play for NWSL. And it wasn't really a requirement, but it was like, it was how they ended up paying these players the wages they were deserved. So I think we're still wondering if that will change. Obviously, we have Varane and Macario, who are playing in France, both on the same team for Lyon. We've seen Lavelle, Dahlkemper go to, even Press and Tobin Heath go to England recently. I would like to see some of them find their way over to Europe and just learn a little bit more nuanced soccer. I think the NWSL is very consistent with the way that they play, but that's not exactly the best way to play when you're the most talented team in the world.
So my last question for you this go round, and obviously
Girma at Arsenal, yes. Sorry, Byrne. I would love to see Girma at Arsenal to replace Kim Little in that role. Yes, absolutely. Put her next to Leah Williamson. Love that idea.
And then Rodman at Chelsea replacing Sam Kerr eventually.
If Kerr leaves Chelsea, yeah, I think Rodman, or, I still think Smith has a lot to offer to a team like that. Rodman's obviously more of a winger. Same with Smith. They both can play in centrally, and so that would be interesting. That's a good shout, Vern.
Who's the mug this morning? I forget to ask.
Oh, this it just says "Make It Happen."
Okay,
That's big. It's a big cup of coffee, and I needed it this morning for
so you definitely making it happen. My last question for you is: how long did you have to think about making your itinerary and making this trip happen? Was it an absolute no-brainer? Like the second that it popped up, you're like, "Yep, I'm going."
Well, honestly, when the draw came out, and we're playing all 3 matches on the North Island of New Zealand, I thought this is perfect because I can. What we did in France in 2019 and what we've done in others, 2015 was a little bit different with Canada, but in 2019 we kind of had one big apartment that we rented out, or house that we rented out in Paris, and just went from there. And we can do that in New Zealand, where we just get a house in Auckland, rent it out for as many people as we can fit, and then that allows us to have a home base where we can put our big luggage there, and then I can go to a game on the South Island of New Zealand, or I can go over to Sydney or Melbourne or Brisbane. I have a certain cities, like I definitely want to go to Sydney, definitely want to go to Melbourne, definitely want to go to Brisbane. I wanted to go to Perth to see the new stadium out there, but that was going to be far anyway. I don't think that's going to happen. But there are a couple of
going from Atlanta to LA.
I don't think I want to do that necessarily. But I do want to go to Dunedin on the South Island, because that's a domed stadium that they're actually using. It's a covered stadium. I want to go to see that. And I definitely want to go to see Sydney and Melbourne, because you're there, you got to. But it allows me to it should allow us to have a central location where we can plop our stuff down and then head out as we want. And really, it's more about which matchups do you want to see, right? Like, definitely want to go see Jamaica play. I think that would just be fun. But I also want to go to that England-Denmark game. I think that would be a very interesting matchup. And it just, it's a matter of, does it fit with our schedule and their schedule. Would like to go see, again, if I'm staying in New Zealand, I'll probably try to go to a New Zealand game, because cool to see the home country. I did that in 2019, saw France play. That was really cool. But yeah, the travel schedule actually favors the U.S. very well. I mean, we play Auckland, Wellington, Auckland. Again, all 3 games on the North Island. But that having 2 games bookended at Auckland should help. If you win, you're in Sydney for the round of 16. If you lose, you're in Melbourne, but then you're back on the island if you win either of those games. So the travel schedule does set up nicely for the U.S. and it'll be nice to have be able to have their home base, their training camp grounds close to where they'll be playing most of their games. I think that it's very nice for the U.S. that they got the schedule they did. And I think the draw is really favorable. We can actually talk about the draw a little bit, but sure. Vietnam, I think we'll see a repeat of what we saw with Thailand back in 2019. I don't know if it'll be 13, but it'll be a rout. Yeah. We could see Thailand again. I don't think the Netherlands is at the same level they've been for a while. That 2019 team was really good, and they haven't quite lived up to that since. They're still a good team, but I see them similar to the way that we've had to play Sweden in our group a couple of times, where it's get what you can out of that game and then go beat the crap out of the other 2 teams. I'm expecting Portugal to come through that playoff, which we saw them last summer. And they were a really good defensive team, but they didn't offer anything going forward. We saw them right before the Olympics, I want to say. Yeah, that was 2011 or 2021. That was right before the Olympics. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they've improved. I don't think they've improved that much at all. So I think the draw is very favorable, and you add the fact that we're not traveling too much, very favorable, and the fact that FIFA has realized that the U.S. TV market is one to play into, because you saw what they did for the World Cup in November, making sure we had the same TV time every time. They did similarly with this. Now, obviously, the last match day, we didn't get that, but 9 p.m. Eastern starts. And 3 a.m. is early, but that's 3 a.m. is not the worst it'll be fine, and for West Coast time, that's perfect. 6 a.m. starts and a midnight, or 6 p.m. starts and a midnight start. Yeah. FIFA knows what they're doing now, I think. And it's nice that they waited to release the times, because in the past they've just scheduled the tournament and there you go. They thought about it this time and gave us some preferential treatment, which is very clear we deserve. I mean, props to the U.S. fans. We watched the game on television.
I hope that you realize that you have a golden ticket here for the show.
Yeah.
So whenever you want to parachute in, you may. That is the idea of the golden ticket. So anytime that you want to talk about stuff, seriously, just like whatever, just like, hey, dude, knock on the door and then come parachuting in. So because we have to see what your mugs are on a different basis.
I know. Again, I have a nice collection of different mugs. So yeah. Yeah, Byrne, I'm with you. I don't think that Portugal is there yet, but you know, they're still a team that has some talent, and I think if you get the right manager helping them along, they should be okay. But yeah, the women's game in Europe is surpassing the women's game here, and to get on this diatribe again, the problem is not Vlatko.
Yeah.
The problem is U.S. soccer and the United States soccer system developing players well enough. You know, you have in Europe an established soccer infrastructure that for the longest time did not make space for women, and that was the issue. The problem for the U.S. now is they're creating space, they're moving over they're embracing the women's game, and they have academy systems, professional clubs, coaching and referee certifications, all this infrastructure that they can copy and paste to the women's game, because there's no difference. Yeah. There's no difference in developing no real difference between developing a good men's or a good women's player, right? You still need the technical development at a young age, add the physical development as they grow older. We know these things. In the US, unfortunately, we're still in a system that gears female players especially to play in college. And then at the college level, a lot of them develop, and then we see them in NWSL.
Right.
What we need to have is NWSL, and again, they're only in year 10. Think about when MLS started actually having academies. It was not year 10. Spoiler alert. Yeah. It was maybe year 15 at best. I'm trying to think when like some of these academies started actually operating. Maybe like most of them though, Philly and Red Bulls and Philly, maybe in the 2012 to 15 range is when they started really developing an academy, and that was a brand new academy.
Right.
You know, so we're seeing that a little bit with Louisville, with Kansas City, of thinking about an academy first structure of the club. You know, unfortunately, we saw that with Utah, and obviously Deloy is not a nice person, but I'm hoping that can be resurrected with I can't remember his name, but the new owner out there in Utah who has said he wants to bring back the Utah women's team, and I think that's in the plans for NWSL soon. You know, I think that's the step that NWSL and US Soccer needs to take, is how do we get professional academies to develop girls for the professional game, not for the college game, for the professional game. Now, you're going to get a lot of girls who are going to end up going to college for that. Look at Atlanta United. I mean, the amount of players that we turn out from Atlanta United's academy to the college level is very high, and that's just because you're developing good players. That's the goal, right? If the bare minimum is most of your players go to college, that's fine. What you're trying to get is that top 2% that end up going to some sort of a professional club.
Right.
And so I think that's the next step right now for the women's game in the United States is we're still developing really good players. We're still developing players who are physically gifted, who are good at a lot of aspects of the game, but I will say that our technical and tactical IQ could be higher. And that comes from professionally run academies, not local soccer clubs.
Right.
Trying to get kids to go to college because that's how they show their improvement.
Yeah. Plus the revenue that they generate. we have kept you for an actual first.
Again, there are a lot of like theoretical and philosophical questions about like I don't think you can. I see this on Twitter all the time. Is we talk about the game in front of us when it comes to the U.S. Women's National Team, and not the theoretical issues that this team is facing.
Yeah.
So,
but the thing is, and one of the things that we have always tried to do here is let these issues have that space, because we have the space. And when you can have a long form theoretical discussion, that's what this is here for. I mean, sadly, when we spent an hour and 40 minutes on the Yates report, that was because you needed to spend an hour and 40 minutes on the Yates report.
Yeah, and the problem is that we're gonna like the Yates report highlights all the bad things within it, within this women's soccer, within youth sports as a whole. You know, and as I've said, this is a turning point for women's soccer in this country to say this was bad. How do we build a new future?
Right.
And Rich, to your point, you know, NWSL academies plus a growing USL women's league, that's exactly more what we're talking about, right? How many? Don't get me started on ECNL, SECL, and PL.
Rich, of course, it would be Rich to get it started.
But I'm not going to go down that road.
No, because look, you've already spent you've already spent your first period of. You've already done your first period of extra time. Unless you are, I don't want you to get in trouble with your real job.
Yeah, the point I'm trying to make is there's an opportunity still for this game and this country and this federation to realize the flaws it had, correct them, and build a new future. And as we develop a true second division, that'll help, because that'll just bring more professional soccer clubs across the country, and that's what we need. We can't have 12 professional teams and that's it.
Yeah,
for a country this large. You know,
absolutely not.
Hey, your mic works.
I know, strange.
Everyone clap for John. He got his mic to work.
Well, I think what it may be is when Jarrett comes on and he's in a wireless setting.
Okay.
That interference somehow might actually be the problem. But as I've told you, I mean, we have the space here, and that's why we want to discuss things journalistically. We want to discuss things philosophically. We want to have the space so we can be both journalistic and hopefully present issues with all of their tentacles so folks understand things in 3 dimensions. It's not just something with this. One of the things we've never wanted to be was a hot takey bunch.
Yeah, there's plenty of hot takes you can have.
But that's easy. You're not addressing the problems, you're not attacking the problems, you're not offering solutions, and you're not covering it journalistically.
Right.
Because we have the space, that's why we do things the way that we do here. It's, you know, to just sit there and mouth off and sit there and go, you know, hot take. No. That's not what we do, and we've never wanted to do that kind of stuff. Yes, I know I can come in with a one-liner and it's really easy to sit there and do a jab, but at the same time, when there's an element to discussing something and deep diving into something, that's why we do what we do.
Exactly. And that's, again, when we're talking about soccer in this country, nothing is what it is on the face, because there's so many things that come behind it. I mean, it is what it is. But I do need to get out of here, but I appreciate letting me come and talk about all these important topics that need to be talked about. Today is 1 month from the USA-England match. I'd hope that you join me at Wild Leap Atlanta from 12 till whenever we decide to not be there. Exactly. For the USA-England watch party, we'll have special craft small batch beers from Wild Leap. They'll have special cocktails and slushies. So I've been told there'll be red, white, and blue themed slushies. They're alcoholic slushies, not kid slushies. Some appearances from some former Atlanta United players. I've heard a guy named John Nelson might be there.
Very early. Yeah. Well, but like I said, I can be there like really early at kickoff because that's playoffs for
Right.
high school
Yeah.
football. So it's like I can multitask and and just buzz past, sit there and do the imitation palatial wave and go, y'all have fun, y'all have mine. I got to go to work. So it's like two places in one day.
Yeah, unfortunately, you have to work Black Friday. But if you're not working Black Friday, if you have friends or family coming into town, bring them as well. We do ask that you pre-register, just because we need to make sure we keep track of the
numbers.
The numbers that we're going to hopefully have there. We're not worried about like necessarily capacity, but we just need to make sure we know who's coming.
Yeah.
So would love to have you all there. Obviously, it'll be a big soccer party. We'll have the Atlanta United SGs there. We'll have Atlanta United will be, like I said, some former players will be there. All these things will be fun. Hope you can make it. And again, we'll have parties every World Cup match as well. But that's the big one. That's the Black Friday matchup between USA England, the bitter battle where we throw out the tea and tell them that it's terrible. We're going to have a tea party of our own, except I think we'll be throwing beer, not tea.
Well, you don't want to, but you don't want to you don't want to just sit there and throw that stuff away because of the consumption that you could have. I mean, unless
have you been in the supporters section, John? We don't give a damn about that.
Just throw it up into the air. I figured
just
maybe
throw it.
Okay, all right. Bart Keeler, Soccer for US Pod, Bartimus Prime 19 on the Twitters. Once again, you have a golden ticket here. So if there's anything that pops up in your brain that will not get you in trouble with your real world job, just
I just work late when I come on here. That's what happens.
There you go. All right. Well, get back to the real world, and we will catch up with you soon, my friend.
Thanks, John.
All right. That's Bart.
Y'all be good.
Yeah, or not, whichever's more fun. And make it happen, as the mug says. All right. So now that we have gone completely and totally off the rails, I know that's not a surprise. I believe it is now time. Let's see, to run the promo. So that means I have to come here, find the music level. The music level, I think, according to Coco, is like 28. All right, so there's 28, and it's time to read the promo. For odor-free, clean, fresh air, one place you need to go, and it's our friends at Eliminize Service. QR code over my left shoulder for those of you watching on Twitch. Eliminize Service deodorizes enclosed spaces like houses, apartments, and condos. They've created a customized solution that eliminizes all organic odors, including those like pets, cigarettes, and food. Realtors and property managers use Eliminize Service to eliminate bad odors to help them sell or rent their homes that much faster. It's a turnkey process, makes it easy to work with realtors and property managers. Kind to the environment. We like that these days, offering a green way to go about getting rid of odors without any kind of toxic residue whatsoever. Different than Febreze or our favorite masking agents that we have either under the sink or above us in the cupboard, because when you reach under the sink or above you in the cupboard, you spray the masking agent. That's why they call it a masking agent. It just masks the odor. It doesn't attack the problem all the way down to the molecule like our friends at Eliminize do with their proven scientific formula. Pricing very, very easy. Cubic feet or parts per million to come up with a price that's affordable for you, offering results in 24 hours or less. If you have any questions, frequently asked or otherwise, one place you need to go, it's the website. This is where I pick up my pen and wave it frantically. Eliminize.com, but do us a favor. After the .com, go /Atlanta so they know what part of the world that you are addressing them from, so they can help you with your problem. Your full homework assignment, ELIMINIZE.com /Atlanta, Eliminize.com /Atlanta for odor-free, clean, fresh air. Eliminize Service, proud sponsors of everything SDH on a Tuesday. And there you go. There's your promo. All right, so let's get into the. That's what happens when you don't pause the music and you just fade it and you think that you're done. There we go. All right, let's get into the comments and go from the top. And once again, thanks to everybody who has been diving in this morning. I'll go back through and see if there's anything that we missed. Michael Head off the top. AGC's got an article lamenting the facts that USWNT's best players and keepers not getting consistent game time at their clubs. Yeah, and so I think that it may end up being an issue, specifically at keeper. I know that we have all looked at, Zach Steffen. He's going to be the guy, and we've seen the deficiencies of Zach Steffen in big games, and the fact that he ain't getting regular reps. and Matt Turner at least is getting some reps. Sean Johnson has been insane for NYC. Frankly, that's where I would be leaning, is a guy like Sean Johnson and getting him prepared, because he had regular reps and he was doing really well with NYC, except for the last game of the year, which means that they're watching, which means that Sean Johnson has time on his hands and can be prepared for the World Cup, that World Cup thing that we're talking about. Yeah, so specifically for me, striker and keeper, front and back. That's where I'm concerned. So not necessarily earth-shattering news that that information's out there. We've been talking about it for months. And you look at your keepers, and for me, it's Turner and Johnson. But we know that Zach Steffen's going to be a part of the discussion for 3GB. So there you go. Not a surprise, but it won't be the last time that it's there. That you got stuff going on. Emilio, when we were talking about coaching carousel perception is important and works both ways. Absolutely. And so, we got to, you're any fan for any team has to keep an eye on that, because once again, if you have philosophy and you have a coach and then you don't have a coach, then where's your philosophy? And then everything is just, it's the spigot's been turned on and the fire hydrant is just pouring the water into the street, and you've got to try to find somebody who can try to cap that line. Yeah, I know that. Rack. Yeah, about damn time for Adidas, frankly. Yeah. That's all I can say. Took entirely too damn long, but they finally did. Let's see, Burned. You can't play Benny Ball in Houston, expect Mexican-American fans to come out at the stadium. Didn't they make that mistake already once with an English coach? Yeah, Owen Coyle. That was bad. Owen Coyle was awful as the head coach in Houston. Hugo Perez would be a fantastic get in my mind. He really would. But does he want to leave El Salvador's national team? That's the biggest question for me. Tafka, I think he has better flexibility for international play, better judge of talent, and overachieve with El Salvador. That he has done. Rack, you admin an MLS collecting group. Houston is a perpetual joke. Nobody cares and is an understatement. Only person anyone cared about was Beasley. Yeah, sadly, Houston, and this is why I got into the point about our friend Glenn Davis, is that Glenn invests so much of his time and his heart and his effort into the game that you want to see it succeed. And when we've had Glenn on the show in the past, you can sense the care, you can sense the frustration, and you can sense the disappointment in someone like Glenn about wanting to have that market succeed. And you want to. And I think that this coaching hire can go in a way to help that out. And then when I was trying to figure out what was going on with my headset, so we got to there. Pineda needs results in a home playoff game in 2023. We'll get into the conversation since you mentioned it, Michael. We'll get into the quotes yesterday from Arthur Blank. Arthur Blank was on 92.9 The Game, and he had some thoughts there. Speaking of Gabriel Heinze, reportedly talking to Newell's. So that's an interesting one. So we'll see see if Gabriel Heinze continues, gets his next piece of employment with them. So we'll see. All right. So yesterday, Arthur Blank on 92.9 The Game. We don't play the matches to lose. We think we have a bright young coach who's moving in the right direction. We are assessing other areas of the club like scouting and personnel that we think are important. So that's one of the quotes yesterday from Arthur Blank. So we'll keep, he was asked about the level of urgency he feels over getting Atlanta United back on track. It's very, very high. It's extraordinarily high. So there was a wide-ranging conversation that they had on the midday show on 92.9. So go to 929thegame.com and you could probably research that conversation and hear it in its entirety. Arthur Blank also said the Falcons still have players to add work to do. Very optimistic about the direction of the team. I love our leadership players. We're still building the team. So Arthur Blank on the midday show for 92.9. He was on there yesterday. Let's see. Also on the board this morning, Let's see. As I'm going past all of the point where all of you were pointing out, my microphone was on the fritz. Rich Ransom and Michael. Atlanta's a hotbed in MLS without better results. How long will it last? And the discussion was going on among a lot of you when it came to Atlanta as a soccer community for Major League Soccer. Rich Ransom, Houston is just a city where unfortunately it absolutely needs a Mexican superstar and has to be incredibly good. That's why they brought in Ache and they brought in Ferreira. And now that they're just trying to, I think if you bring in the coach to match, hopefully you can bring folks in and have them as a part of the turnaround there. Golden rule from Byrne, usually not the coach. It's usually the GM in soccer, and then some guy named Nelson replied, or an impatient owner, kind of like what we're seeing with Ted Siegel. Tafka, your point. Too many soccer fans in Atlanta. Losing team's never great. I don't think the club's in danger of disinterest, just discontent. Then Jarrett went through and recapped everything. We were that close to a lot of stuff. Burned. Still blame Jake Mulroney for getting a stupid red card in the 26th minute of a 9 a.m. game on the Florida Heat on the Mickey Mouse Field. And yeah, that was when Jaap Stam basically just punted it, I think, for the remaining 60-plus minutes, and that was awful television. DM Tim, by the way, DM Tim ran into your buddy who was a part of our crew on Football Fridays, and it was fun to have that conversation. I think that might have been the one that they said that they were sorry for later on in the week. Byrne has it. Okay. Well-earned red, kicked somebody in the knee. I think that was the one on the near side where Jake went in and got studs. All right, Emilio, given what we know about Joseph and the lack of talent in the midfield, what if we traded Joseph, acknowledged the midfield limitations, kept Heinze, gave the summer and the winter window? That goes to the idea of possibly trading someone at their peak. And I don't know if in Major League Soccer you want to do that at the time. Michael, once again, this was the topic that we talked about yesterday, and I'll continue to remind folks about it. What we don't know what we don't know. And that's how I'm going to continue to look at this, where you have a job opening and it's not going to be the interviewees and the search is not going to be tenured into public discourse. They have their thoughts in mind. They've got their guys. They have their folks who are sitting there in the committee room sitting there saying, okay, this guy, this person. You bring them all in to interview, and it's not something that they're going to tell us, okay, well, we're bringing in so-and-so, and he's going to interview. That's not their MO, and it never has been. So I still keep an eye on MLS Cup for any kind of announcement because of the importance of the event, the importance of the week. Think about other sporting events and what folks do in weeks like that. Roman numeral Classic, you see the same thing. Yeah, David, he did have a red rescinded. It was against Nashville in Nashville. But yeah, just when it comes to a president, any kind of front office stuff, traditionally this club has not done anything publicly. And when it gets either very, very close or they're getting ready to announce, then we know. But I'm trusting that they're not just sitting there with a remote control trying to figure out what games they want to watch. It is an active discussion. When they have everything laid out, then they'll let us know. But no, I would anticipate something like MLS Cup week, something like that. Once again, great discussion that you guys had with Bart this morning. Loved every minute of that. And it was great to see that kind of discourse. And that's what we always like to have here, is just good back and forth discourse when it comes to a lot of this stuff. And the fact that we got into as deep a conversation about the women's national team and the women's game as we did, very, very cool this morning, that we got into that this morning. Dion Pereira. Okay. Fair tackle in the second half. First half, red versus Cincy. I think it was someone else, Dion Pereira or JJ Williams. We still got a draw out of that match, one of his favorite memories. All right. So let's get into the other news of the day before we go. Unai Emery is your new head coach at Aston Villa, and they had to pay 7 million, I think it was 6 or 7 million euro to Villarreal to make that go down. Joined Villarreal 2020, led him to success in the Europa League and Champions League success. Once again, he'll begin his new role November 1st after the work permits and everything are laid out, meaning his first match will be at home to Manchester United Sunday, November 6th. He's got Manchester United at home. Then 4 days later, he has them again in Carabao Cup. Then he's got at Brighton November 13th for his first 3 matches. He's going to hold a farewell press conference today at Villarreal. And once again, remember, Europa League title at Manchester United's expense at the end of that first season. Villarreal Champions League semis for the second time in their history. A lot of folks remember his time at Arsenal, and I know that soccer over there, I know that Jason and everybody was where I poo-pooed Unai Emery, and I was wrong. So what he did, I don't think he was really given enough time or resources to do what he set out to do. And he got bumped out once again, going back to the whole idea of impatient owners and fans and front offices and things like that. Kind of like with other folks like Graham Potter. Not, Graham Potter, tremendous amount of success that he had. Except for Potter, it was success, where Unai Emery, I don't think, was given the time to be successful and had to put up with a bunch of headaches at the same time. Remember, and also Unai Emery turned down a return to Newcastle when he was approached by them. Won a Ligue 1 title with PSG, 2 French Cups, 2 French League Cups, 3 Europa Leagues with Sevilla. Combined with the 4th, he won at Villarreal, the most successful manager in the history of the competition. So Unai Emery back in the Premier League, and he is at Aston Villa. Cristiano Ronaldo, our national nightmare, continues. He returns to first-team training. He returned to first-team training at Carrington on Tuesday with Manchester United. Okay, so we'll see how long that goes. West Ham's up to 10th after a contentious header by Kurt Zouma and Ben Rama's penalty that ensured West Ham moves into the top half of the table with a 2-0 win over Bournemouth. Also getting into the news, gossip, rumor, and innuendo before we get into all of the other news of the day and viewing habits and stuff that you need to keep an eye on. Avoiding the 3 and the 4-letter newspaper, as we always traditionally do. The Athletic, Chelsea are set to appoint AS Monaco technical director Laurent Stewart to a role in the revamped setup at Stamford Bridge. Looks like Todd Bowley's going to stay as sporting director through the January window. So we'll keep an eye on that setup. The Mirror, 3 strikers rumored to be in the sights of Eric Ten Hag, Lille's Jonathan David, Bayer Leverkusen's Patrick Schick, Lyon's Moussa Dembele. Arsenal had been back to rival Chelsea for the signing of Leandro Trossard as the race for the Brighton Star heats up. That's from our friends at the Express. Chelsea reportedly considering a January loan exit for Gabriel Slonina in the hope he can bank more senior game time. What a surprise. The Times, Eric Ten Hag hoping to strike a truce with Cristiano Ronaldo when the pair meet today. Guardian, Ruben Loftus-Cheek has revealed his relief at finally being fit enough to become a regular starter for Chelsea. Admitted it would mean the world to him if he makes a late run into England's squad for Qatar. And speaking of Qatar, I'm going to bring this next story to the table and present it without comment. Okay, so let me get to the story here. Reuters. Headline, Andrew Mills. Qatar faced unprecedented criticism over hosting World Cup, Emir says. Qatar has faced, and this is the Reuters copy with a couple of paragraphs. Qatar has faced unprecedented criticism since winning the bid to host the 2022 World Cup, some of which amounted to slander, its ruler Emir Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani said on Tuesday, quote, "We initially dealt with the matter in good faith," Sheikh Tamim said in a televised policy speech, adding that some of the early criticism was constructive. But he said a campaign against Qatar expanded to, quote, "include fabrications and double standards that were so ferocious that has unfortunately prompted many people to question the real reasons and motives behind the campaign," end quote. Sheikh Tamim said hosting the World Cup was a great test for a country the size of Qatar. Quote, "We accepted this challenge out of our faith and our potential, we the Qataris, to tackle the mission and make it a success. It is a championship for all, and its success is success for all." Doha has introduced reforms, including rules to protect workers from heat, a monthly minimum wage of $275. Says it continues to develop its labor system. Foreign workers account for 85% of some 3 million of the population of Qatar. Sheikh Tamim said higher energy prices had helped Qatar realize a government budget surplus. The budget surplus will be directed to reducing the level of public debt and increasing the state's financial reserves. The World Cup would allow Qatar to showcase its economic and institutional strength and cultural identity, he said. Story presented without comment. So there you go. Also on the board, let's get into the other gossip, rumor, and innuendo of today. All right. Tottenham want to agree to a new contract with Harry Kane early next year, confident he'll commit to the long-term future of the club. That's from our friends at 90 Minutes. Bayern sporting director Hasan Salihamidzic says the club, who have been linked with the move for Kane, will not be active in the January transfer window. That's from Bild. Manchester United, Erik ten Hag would like to keep Cristiano Ronaldo till the end of the season. However, if he will not accept a reduced role, he will be allowed to find a new club. Leverkusen's Patrick Schick, and we got into that from the Mirror. Ronaldo open to a set to return to Italy. Napoli still keen on a deal following their interest in the summer, but that's from the three-letter paper. Accept that at your own peril. Chelsea will prioritize a move for Rafael Leao over a deal for Ronaldo from CBS. Sport in Spanish. PSG have doubts over their ability to continue paying France forward Kylian Mbappe's contract. The current deal is worth a quarter of the team's total budget. £549 million over 3 years. PSG have also denied, according to Fabrizio Romano, that those figures are correct. The Blues are still interested, Chelsea, in signing midfielder Arsene Zakarian from Dinamo Moscow, who's 19. Antonio Conte believes he'll need 3 more transfer windows to improve the depth of Tottenham's squad. Real Madrid set to offer an improved 3-year deal to 26-year-old Spain forward Marco Asensio, who was linked with a move to Arsenal, Liverpool, and Spurs. That's from Ser Deportivo via AS. Celtic boss Ange Postecoglou has dismissed suggestions he can make a move to the Premier League because there are links to him, Brighton, and Leicester. 4-letter paper, take at your own peril. PSG want to keep Messi at the club, working on a contract extension. That's from Le Parisien. Liverpool will rival Manchester United for the signing of Benfica's 18-year-old Portuguese center back Antonio Silva. That's from Ohogo via Team Talk. And we mentioned Lawrence Stewart and Spanish manager Quique Setien. This is the front runner to replace compatriot Unai Emery at Villarreal after Emery joined Aston Villa. Another name being bandied about is Gallardo after leaving River Plate. So we have Gallardo and Setien being linked to Villarreal. We have Gabriel Heinze being linked to Newell's. We have Hugo Perez, Ben Olsen linked to Houston. We'll get into more with Dylan Butler on that tomorrow. So viewing on your day today. So let's get into all of your viewing habits and your juice boxes before we go. And once again, thanks to everybody for hanging out. It's been a very, very busy day. College soccer, ACC Network, 7 o'clock. College soccer on the B1G at 6. They have a doubleheader. Champions League is today. So we'll get into those juice boxes and the schedules coming up in just a bit. 2 to N8 Unimas. Simulcasting Salzburg, Chelsea, and PSG Maccabi Haifa. B1G Plus, men's action on the college game. ESPN Plus, a lot of college action on the men's side starting at 3. Championship, Burnley, Norwich City at 2:50. Paramount Plus has all of your Champions League. Don't forget Golasso Show on CBS Sports Network. Brasileiro, those matches are wrapping up today. VIX and VIX Plus have your other Champions League matches, and so that is your viewing habits for your Tuesday. And great that you guys are going back over the Cincinnati match that drove us all nuts. So yeah, and that could very well be that Jake Mulroney is not a morning person. So going back to that ugly morning where it was where we had SDH, I believe, immediately after the match, and that was an interesting show. Youth League in Europe, that's at noon. Champions League, your juice boxes. Sevilla, big favorite at home against FC Copenhagen at a -185. Chelsea, a favorite on the road at Salzburg at a -127. A lot of the lower divisions that we have action in the championship at 245, League 1 at 245, League 2 at 245, full grids. So we'll see what's going on there. Wrexham, for those of you interested, are big favorite at home against FC Halifax at a minus 294. That one is at 245. I'm sure there's a VPN out there somewhere where you can watch. A lot of the lower divisions in England going on at 245. Champions League, 3 o'clock. AC Milan, a big favorite at minus 132 at Dinamo Zagreb. Leipzig, a home favorite at plus 145 against Real Madrid, who's a plus 190. Celtic at home, minus 137 against Shakhtar Donetsk. Manchester City, a minus 161 on the road at Dortmund. PSG, minus 1,000 at home against Maccabi Haifa. Benfica, a favorite at a plus 108, hosting Juve, who's a plus 263. Vélez Sarsfield, Central Córdoba, and the Liga Profesional de Football at a minus 116. Vélez Sarsfield is a favorite. Copa Libertadores, women, that's at 6 o'clock. Deportivo Cali is a favorite at a plus 114 against Boca Juniors. Platense and Lanús is at 7 o'clock. Platense is a plus 129, and Lanús is a plus 238. And then you have Serie A, Serie B, and other things like Expansión. So that is your grid for today. Yeah, I think it was the fastest. I think it was, yeah, David, I think you're right. 4 minutes before that read. But David, to be honest, that's why, nothing wrong with being a sick person. We're all sick here together. That's what this show has been about. And we are in our 6th year of doing this for the network. And it'll be very, very, obviously we can't do it without you guys, but thanks for all of you who have been here as we're now in our 6th season of the SDH network and doing all the stuff that we do. Later today, programming notes. The USL programming will be up and running. Championship and League One playoff previews. And it looks like tomorrow we will have interviews with Rafa Mensingen from Chattanooga Red Wolves previewing USL League One separately from the recap that we're posting today and the USL Championship recap that we're posting today. We'll have some college football stuff over on the OSG Sports side of things going over. And if you missed it, if you haven't had a chance to listen, over at OSG Sports, big interview with John Perlman, who now has the book out on Bo Jackson, The Last Folk Hero. So we got to catch up with him for about 25 minutes. A real fun conversation with him about what it's like to piece a book like this together. 2.5 years, over 700 interviews. John Perlman is over on the OSG Sports side of things. So go to your favorite podcatcher and the OSG Sports app, available iOS and Android. Dylan Butler will be with us tomorrow, standard 10 o'clock. We are efforting John Arnold from the Get CONCACAF group, and we'll hopefully have him on tape Thursday afternoon as well. Thursdays with Nico should be on Thursday, and the standard Friday morning show will get you ready for things, and hopefully we'll have a lot of input on USL League One semis and the round of 8 in USL Championship throughout the week. So we'll keep you posted with all that stuff as well. So very, very busy week. And there's nothing wrong with being a sick person hanging out here because we're all sick together, David. And that's the fun part about doing stuff here at SDH. So we will be back tomorrow morning, and we will have all the talk that we have, and we'll continue to rock and roll. And thanks to you guys for hanging out with us and letting all of your views be heard, because that's the beauty of the Twitch pitch and the conversation, having conversations with others, having conversations with us, our guests, all that kind of stuff. So we'll be back at it tomorrow morning, 9:05 as promised, and we'll run through it again for a Wall Pass Wednesday. So once again, anything on your mind coming out of Champions League, getting ready for more Champions League, we'll talk about all that stuff tomorrow, and anything else on your mind, because that's what we're here for. So mucho plot to y'all, and since it is the end of the show, that means one thing, and it means I get to do this. So we'll see you tomorrow. Thanks for hanging out.